and I will start off with my hot take of the week, and then I'll let you guys talk, that Ohio State is in a position to lose this game, or more likely to lose this game than any other, matchup with a team situated like Notre Dame has in the past, 5, 6, 7 years, unless you consider Michigan being kind of equally built. But I think that they've already proven that. So is Ohio State on upset alert? I know it's only a 3-point spread, but do either of you think that Notre Dame's going to win this game?
Ari, I'm not willing to call it upset alert. I just think Notre Dame's a better team. The wrong team's favored here. So let me get this straight. I'm supposed to believe that Kyle McCord, who has looked okay, going on the road for his first big-time atmosphere, Indiana. Sorry. Shout out Brody Miller, my guy. For the first time against an experienced team, an experienced quarterback, top 10 opponent who's probably better than the 9th best team in America. And he's supposed to be a favorite on the road? No. Notre Dame wins this game, Ari. I think they might win it by double digits. I like Notre Dame in this game. If they don't, it's going to be because Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau just wreak havoc. I have some questions about Notre Dame's pass protection, but I think their corners are good enough to slow down Ohio State's receivers. Kyle McCord, I think, is good. I don't know that he's in the class of world beater just yet. So I'm buying as much stock as I can get my hands on for Notre Dame right now, because today's price is not tomorrow's price on the Irish. People might be, I think, maybe be asking if this is a top 2-3 team after this game. Notre Dame about to flex.
I agree with everything David just said, and I think the Buckeyes are going to win. I think this is you make great points. I totally buy into the fact that Notre Dame hasn't had a quarterback like Sam Hartman in these matchups, because this is the thing, right? These are the games that Notre Dame, especially under Brian Kelly, have notoriously lost. They, would be top 10 teams, or they'd even have some playoff teams, but they'd be in these games where the talent level, they couldn't quite match up, and then they'd get beat either by a little or a lot. I understand all that. I feel like Ohio State, they found a little bit of a gear in that Western Kentucky game in the second quarter, and then they took off. And I thought they'd been kind of unimpressive. I know we can talk about your tweet, Ari. If
we'll get to it.
But, I agreed with that. I have not been that impressed by McCord or Ohio State up until that point. And again, it's still Western Kentucky, but part of me just wonders if they're going to get up for this game. And even if McCord isn't as good as Hartman, if he can be, decent, and the talent level for Ohio State will then just take over. I realize it's at Notre Dame. Pete Sampson wrote a great piece this week about how Notre Dame home games against big teams like this haven't always worked out for them because the opposing team's fans travel so well. The Georgia one's notorious. I was at the game that Cincinnati beat Notre Dame in South Bend the year Cincinnati went to the playoff, and it wasn't.
That was
quite
the day after my daughter was born. We watched that in the hospital with her.
Yeah,
I was thinking about you the whole time.
I appreciate that. It wasn't quite the level of the Georgia game, but like the Cincinnati fans showed up for that, and there were moments where you could really hear the Cincinnati crowd. I think as much as Notre Dame's trying to battle that, there's still going to be a significant amount of Ohio State fans there. And so that, I just feel like the way that everyone's going to be up for that game, in the end, the Ohio State talent might win out. But I could also see a scenario where it's a tight game, and even if Ohio State wins, or whichever way it goes, we're talking about whoever wins is a top 5, legit playoff contender, but whoever loses is still like a top 10 outside playoff contender, because both these teams might be at that level.
Wow, I've got a lot to unpack here, but let's first start with some trivia. And I don't know if you guys listen to Stars Matter, but you want to know why Notre Dame's an underdog, Dave? Because you seem curious about it. I'm going to tell you. Guess how many top 100 players?
Stats,
guess how many top 100 players are on Ohio State's offense out of their starting 11? How many of the 11?
0.
It's 7. But keep the same energy for the next part. How many top 100 players on Notre Dame's defense?
0
out of the 11. 0. It's a 7-0 advantage. So as a statistical analysis breaks out here, if you want to understand why Notre Dame is a dog, it's because Ohio State had, like, their 8th best player on their offense was higher rated than their best player on defense. Now that doesn't always equate to better teams, and that's what gets me to the next point here. I watched Ohio State play all 3 of their games. I don't know what it is about that team, but I cannot break the habit of watching them because it was such a big part of my life for the past 10 years. So I've watched that's 12 quarters of Ohio State football this year. The first 8 were like gouging my eyes out boring. Like they didn't seem like they wanted to play. They weren't interested in lighting up the scoreboard. There was zero havoc whatsoever in the Youngstown State game against a FCS opponent that they should be throwing around like they were playing a JV team from high school. And in the first quarter of the Western Kentucky game, it kind of seemed like that was headed in the same direction. I posted a tweet before the second quarter onslaught that Justin is referring to, saying that it looked like if Ohio State didn't wake up, that they could lose to Notre Dame because they lacked the juice or something similar to that. I don't remember what the whole tweet said, but after the game was over, it went viral in the Ohio State sphere, like a lot of tweets do, because people were mad. Like, how could you possibly think this if you watched the game, not realizing that the tweet was fired before they went crazy in the second quarter? So my question or my thought process is that I think that Ohio State dwarfs Notre Dame, like so many teams in this situation have before in terms of total roster talent. My real question is whether or not Ohio State has a better football team than them. That to me is a major discussion point. So right now, looking through the first 3 weeks of the Notre Dame season and looking through the first 3 weeks of the Ohio State season, Notre Dame to me seems to be a more functional, good football team. And they are at home and they're getting points. And it goes against every fiber of my being as a human being to pick against the team that has such a stark talent advantage. But I'm starting to learn from losing a lot of bets because of that strong angst or that strong desire to bet on the team that has much more talent, that sometimes the talent total doesn't necessarily equate to better football teams. Now, here's the one thing that I would be afraid of and why I wouldn't play the game. I'm going to pick the game. I'm not going to play it. First of all, because I'm going. But secondly, if Ohio State wakes up and decides it wants to play good, functional, aggressive, passionate football, they could kill Notre Dame by 40 points. Like I think they are
40. No, I'll give you.
Maybe not 40. 2 or 3.
I'll give you 2 touchdowns.
But what I'm saying is if they play Ohio State functional and they access their talent, they are an infinitely better equipped talent-wise football team. That said, all they have been is dysfunctional through 2 games, 2.5 games,
2 and 1 quarter games.
And it's how much do you want to trust a quarter? Because they weren't that great in the second half against Western Kentucky either. I mean, the game was over. There was nothing to do. I'm not saying that's a problem, but how much trust do you want to put into that second quarter of the Western Kentucky game? I think that to me is what kind of makes your decision here.
I just I just don't care about yeah, it matters how you play in those games, but I just think I want to see what you have and what you're capable of and what you do, against the Western Kentucky or against a Navy. It's kind of like, but I think ultimately, I think NC State is a pretty good team. I think Navy is a lot better than people think. And Notre Dame looks like world beaters. And I think they're about to make people recognize that because you can sort of shrug off NC State. You can shrug off Navy. But you can't shrug this one off. And I think you're about to see a Notre Dame flex here, Ari.
Ari, I've seen you not at a game when you have played it and have money on it. What would it be like if you obviously, integrity wise, you clearly don't want to do that. What would it be like if you were in a press box watching a game that you had some stake in?
Oh, I hold it together. Okay. Listen, when you have a wife and a kid, you got to be able to pretend that nothing's bothering you. Okay. This is a skill. Like I'll be watching a football game that I've got some cheddar on and my wife will be in the kitchen, like cooking or something. And she'll look up at the TV and let's just say like it's a scoop and score. And the team that I bet on was the team that fumbled it. And my wife will go, "Oh my God, that's a terrible play by that other team." And I'll be like, "I know, honey, isn't it?" Well, like having a sense of rage inside my heart that could stop a human life. So yeah, I think that I would be able to contain myself in person, especially because I have to contain myself in my house because my wife has no idea where the money's going or what games are being bet at any given time.
All right, we got to get you a Truman Show situation. We have to. I need this in my life.
I think that people like if people knew my wife, her interests, like her temperament as a person, and then like this is kind of who I am. So if you listen to the show, like I'm not faking anything. It's a really interesting dynamic.
My favorite Ari. So this off season, my wife and I went down to Dallas, and part of our trip was we stopped at Ari's house. Ari, anytime I bring you up, my wife laughs about the fact that you gave your daughter some scalding hot food.
It was an accident.
Yeah. I don't remember what the food was, but you put some food in the microwave and it was like steaming, and you gave it straight to your daughter, and she ate it. It was like, I don't remember what she did. If she like yelled or stopped eating it or started crying, I can't remember.
What happened was, I think it was mashed potatoes, and I swirled it up, and there was a portion.
That's a fickle microwave food. Mashed potatoes.
Well, it wasn't that I'm. Because people are going to think now that you don't know not to give your kids scalding hot food. I do.
We're distracted.
I was either distracted, but I think that it was also like, you know how when you put mashed potatoes into a microwave, like part of it might be hot and then the other part might be cold?
You have to.
I think I tried. I didn't swirl it well enough, and it was just like a disaster. My wife was not home to see that, thank God. But and in the time since, you can tell your wife that I haven't burned my daughter's mouth. So I think that the 40-point win obviously was a little hyperbolic. My only point is, if Ohio State turns it on and plays the game that they are capable of, kind of the same way they did in Georgia or against Georgia in the playoff last year, Notre Dame can't keep up athletically. So the gamble that you're making is, I believe that Notre Dame is a better football team, because you're not necessarily quite sure which Ohio State team is going to show up. Is the dysfunctional team that is emotionless on the sideline for a large portion of the first two games, the green Kyle McCord, who isn't 100% where he's going to be eventually in his career, going to have some issues, or is Ohio State going to show up that is ready to mash a top 10 opponent on the road and assert itself as the best team in the Big Ten, or the second best team with a huge clash with Michigan down the road like that?
All right, I still think Notre Dame can do a lot of the mashing, and I think you're underrating the guy who's going to touch the ball on every play for Ohio State.
No, I'm not.
Well, going in, I just think
Sam Hartman.
No. Kyle McCord. Going in and underrating how big of an issue that can be. If you're in an environment like that for the first time and you haven't looked that great, I think you're underrating that. If
here's the thing that I think that you're underrating.
They lose this game, I think McCord will be a big reason why they didn't get over the top.
When's the last time Ohio State had a bad quarterback?
It's not about a bad quarterback, though, Ari. It's about a quarterback who's not an impact player. He might not be an impact player yet. He might grow into one. I don't think he's an impact player. I don't think he's a guy that wins you games. I think he's a guy that can not lose you a game, but I don't think he's there yet. And I don't think you're going to see that performance against a team. Notre Dame is not the 9th best team in America. They're better than that. Against a team like that on the road with good corners. I just,
well, here's the one thing that I'll say to you that I think you're going to like. I think this might be the first time since the 2016 college football playoff where Ohio State didn't go into the game with a clear advantage or a clear discussion point on who has the better quarterback. The last time this happened was when Ohio State had JT Barrett and they were playing Deshaun Watson's Clemson. In that game, if I remember correctly. And every time since, even when they played Trevor Lawrence, they had college football version of Justin Fields on their team. So it will be very interesting. And I think like the idea of, not pro Justin Fields.
So we have to specify now, right?
I don't know. Well, he was very good in college. I don't know what's going on in Chicagoland, but that's especially this week, an epic disaster that you can go listen to on the NFL shows. I don't know what it would be like to be a Chicago Bears beat writer this week, but can Ohio State win a football game where they don't have a clear and identifiable advantage at the quarterback position, or at the very least have a quarterback that is maybe as good as the other teams?
We'll find out. I just think people are somehow still underrating Notre Dame. I think Ohio State is good. I think Ohio State is definitely one of the 10 best teams in the country, maybe one of the 5 best teams in the country. But in this situation, I think people are just sort of rolling their eyes at, same Notre Dame. They can't get over the top. I think people are really underrating Notre Dame's offensive line, who controls this game.
But you have to also acknowledge that the reason why Notre Dame hasn't been able to win these games still persists in this one. Like that issue.
Is it talent? You're talking about talent?
Yeah, the reason why they get
maybe.
their ass kicked
Yeah.
every time they play a team that's situated like this.
But
When's
part
the
of it
last
might
time
be-
they've beat?
All right, Notre Dame feels like mini Michigan to me in a little bit, like with a better quarterback. I think they're going to be able to run the ball against Ohio State, and I think they're composed in a way. You get the ball to Aldrich Estime, and you can grind out a bunch of yards, control the game, and I think that is why Notre Dame wins this game. It's not so much that Sam Hartman's going to throw for 400 yards; it's that you can control the game that way, and that's why Notre Dame wins this game.
Listen, Dave, I'm playing devil's advocate here. My official pick is Notre Dame +3. I don't know why I think that they're a more functional team. I'm just trying to dissuade people. I've seen this before. Like, I went into the Georgia game last year with Ohio State, Georgia, saying, I don't know how any single person on the face of the earth can pick Ohio State to cover in this game or win this game. And then Ohio State played like a Clash of the Titans type situation where they were a field goal away from beating the back-to-back national champion. When the team with a talented roster like that turns it on, there's no stopping it. It might not be 40 points, but if they turn it on, they're going to kick their ass.
You would be right.
That said,
I'll give you that.
Notre Dame +3 is my pick. What do you guys have?
Notre Dame outright.
I'm pretty shocked to hear that, Dave. What about you, Justin?
I'm
You have
taking
Ohio State?
Yeah,
To cover or just to win?
to cover.